And it's time for Lefties Losing It. And they're not only losing their minds, their tenuous grip on reality and their moral compass, lefties are also losing their jobs. Painfully unfunny, low-rating, tedious, afflicted comic Jimmy Kimmel is off air indefinitely, perhaps forever, after his shocking remarks regarding conservatives, regarding Charlie Kirk and the alleged assassin.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
And if that wasn't bad enough, he thought it'd be a good idea to launch into a diatribe mocking President Donald Trump's grief for Charlie. Jimmy got hit with the karma truck and perhaps he should have listened to his own advice. Only last month, he was speaking with fellow tedious afflicted comic Sarah Silverman and decrying those on the left who are repelling people from the Democrats, repelling them by saying awful stuff. Look in the mirror, Jimmy.
It's the loud voices that scare people from saying what they believe and make you think twice about a joke or whatever, these things. And, a lot of their points are valid, but a lot of them are also just repulsive. And I mean, they repel people.
And during that chat, we found out just how demented these two are because they are still bleating about fleeing the country, fleeing Trump's America. What are they waiting for? Be gone, miscreants.
Well, a lot of people I know are thinking about where they can get citizenship. And
I do have Italian. I did get Italian citizenship.
You do?
I do.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I do have that. And what's going on is as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Way worse.
It's so much worse. It's just unbelievable. Like, I feel like it's probably even worse than he would like it to be.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I do, every once in a while, I'll Google Trump regrets or MAGA regrets just to see all the people that I'm not happy that they're upset and but it makes me hope that maybe this will bring people together.
These people are divorced from reality. They're almost beyond parody. I mean, how do you even mock that? For the record, every poll of Republican voters shows that there is no regret, that Republicans are terribly happy with their man. And those two miserable moaners also said that Trump's America is so much worse than their worst fears. But they're still in America. They have all the money, all the resources in the world to live wherever they want, and they remain in America. Now let's hear from Kamala's former boyfriend, Montel Williams, who had this sick take on Tyler Robinson.
I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
But although I do think there's clearly an ideological difference. That's why I played about what they said about the family. I mean, the ideological difference that he was reacting to.
Now, the media lies and lies by omission continue, but every now and then they get called out. Listen here as Ted Cruz takes on Caitlin Collins' absurd claims that we have no idea why Charlie was murdered. The motives are unclear.
You said a lot there, and we don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governors had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know.
We don't have a motive yet.
What's happening with?
Really, that's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened
Senator.
to fire the gun in celebration. You can't tell the motive.
Senator, that's not what I said, and I said law enforcement hasn't laid out a direct motive. They've laid out a lot of evidence here of these messages and what
actually
the
they
shooter
have.
said to
They've said that
family
he was a
members
left-wing
and to
activist who
roommates.
hated Charlie Kirk.
Yes, an absolute lie on CNN. Authorities have been clear in telling us that this individual was a far-left radical who hated Charlie and the so-called hateful message he was spreading, i.e. the truth. But Caitlin was determined to be embarrassed again. Watch her double down by making objectively false claims.
I'm saying that law enforcement has not put a specific motive. You know that there's a difference of what they're putting in a legal argument than what you're talking about. And you're not even, we're not even arguing about the facts here.
What you just said is false,
Senator,
Caitlin.
No.
Caitlin, facts. Hold on a second. Let me answer your statement, because what you said is factually
Senator, with
false.
all due respect,
law enforcement.
With all due respect, you're putting a lot of statements that I did not say, and I want to get back to. We just laid out the facts.
You just said law enforcement has not made out a motive. That is objectively false. We just spoke to the Deputy Attorney General.
That is
objectively false.
They have not said a concrete motive of exactly what it was.
And
they laid out
CNN should
every
not be
evidence that we
engaged in
know so far.
misinformation. Caitlin, answer my question.
It's not
Have you seen the polling
Senator.
that shows the vast majority of Democrats believe this murderer is a Republican and a Trump supporter? Have you seen that polling?
Let me get back to my questions, though, Senator, because the question here
You're not going to answer that
was
question?
actually
Are you going to answer
what
that
you were
question?
saying
You
about
have seen that
investigations that you'd like to see.
So you're not going to
Senator,
answer
I'm the one asking the questions here.
Yes, you are asking the questions and answering them yourself, Caitlin. Will we hear from Senator Cruz at some point, I wonder? Will he be allowed to utter a single sentence without Caitlin talking over him?
And the question...
No, we're having a conversation. I understand that you want to say things that are factually false, and then you don't actually want the facts. You don't actually want the facts laid out.
Now, to round off Lefties for the week, a week where we have been told to lower the temperature, where we've been told to calm down after one of our brightest, one of our most brilliant and most decent stars was assassinated, after we've watched his murder be celebrated, where we've watched the media lie, straight out lie about the alleged assassin and his motives, as well as lie about Charlie. They want us to come together, to be unified with those who want to see us dead. Well, Vice President JD Vance addressed those sentiments. He wants unity, but first we have to acknowledge the truth.
Something has gone very wrong with a lunatic fringe, a minority, but a growing and powerful minority on the far left. There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree. Did you know that the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the groups who funded that disgusting article justifying Charlie's death, do you know they benefit from generous tax treatment? They are literally subsidized by you and me, the American taxpayer. And how do they reward us? By setting fire to the house built by the American family over 250 years. I am desperate for our country to be united in condemnation of the actions and the ideas that killed my friend. I want it so badly that I will tell you a difficult truth. We can only have it with people who acknowledge that political violence is unacceptable, and when we work to dismantle the institutions that promote violence and terrorism in our own country.
Joining me now is political advisor and commentator CJ Pearson. CJ, Charlie Kirk was instrumental in JD Vance becoming vice president. JD Vance has said that himself. He wouldn't be VP without Charlie. And what the vice president said there was powerful and undeniably true, and he named names.
You know, you're exactly right. You know, there's been a lot of talk about so-called coexistence on the left, but I got to tell you, when it comes to this political violence issue, there's a lot of folks in the media who try to make this a both sides issue. But here's the deal, to me at least, and I think to a lot of people here in the West, is that these bullets are only going from left to right. You know, you look at they didn't try to kill President Trump once, they tried to kill him twice. You look at the fact of the congressional baseball shooting that happened just a few years ago when they tried to kill Majority Leader Steve Scalise. That was a leftist. And you look at what happened with Charlie Kirk. That was, again, a leftist. These people need to condemn political violence. These people need to rid themselves of the hate that fills their heart. And so when you talk about whether or not this is a both sides issue, yes, both sides should condemn political violence. But again, we cannot ignore the fact that it is disproportionately put those on the left that are committing these egregious acts of violence. And we ought to stand up for it.
Absolutely. Now to the news earlier today that Disney is pulling ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live, the late night program. They're pulling it indefinitely. Many are speculating it's never going to come back. CJ, I played his hideous lies about Charlie and the alleged killer on last night's program. For those who missed it,
we hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Just vile. And he followed that up, CJ, by mocking how President Trump was mourning Charlie.
You know, it's absolutely disgusting, and but on par for, the elite liberal left. And I got to tell you, I'm actually glad that his show has been so-called indefinitely suspended. I think it's well on its way of being canceled, because I thought, actually, aside from politics, I thought a late night show host was supposed to be funny. I didn't know that was such a radical idea or expectation to have. But here's the thing, the reason these liberals are so akin to just saying whatever they say, regardless of how vile it is, because for a long time they were free of consequences. But now, because of the fact that the silent majority has decided that we will no longer be the silent majority, we will be the loudest hell majority, they are finally being held to account, and thank God for it. So he and Stephen Colbert, I hope they can help each other with their resumes and dust them off, because it seems as if they're going to need it.
CJ, there's a lot of debate about consequence culture versus cancel culture. I don't really care what you call it, but you can't have it be one-way traffic. And finally, the left is being held to their own standards. They're getting a taste of their own medicine. And I think in the long run, it is going to be a win for free speech. And hopefully it will teach them to be able to tolerate differing opinions. Now, President Trump has done something that I think is long overdue. He is moving to have Antifa registered as a terrorist organisation. What do you think about this? This is an extremist far-left group, and they have done enormous harm in recent years.
No, I think this is an incredible move by President Trump, and I think that it's long overdue. Antifa is indeed a domestic terrorist organization that is completely opposed to the values that make America America, and we should go after them with everything that we've got. You look at the assassination of Charlie Kirk, you have an individual who actually echoed a lot of the beliefs that underpin the Antifa agenda. Maybe if we were actually going after them, should have, this would not have happened. So I think this is a long overdue move. Thank God for it. We got to make sure that we're doing all that we can to keep Americans safe. And to keep Americans safe, what does that entail? And going after these so-called anti-fascists who are actually more fascist than the people they accuse of being so-called fascists.
I'm so glad you said that, because this is one of the things that really bugs me about the media. We have it happen right here in Australia, and I'll show you an example. CNN, this is their pitiful reporting. In their opening sentence, they say, President Donald Trump said he is designating far-left anti-fascism group Antifa as a terrorist organisation. CJ, there is nothing anti-fascist about Antifa. Just because they call themselves that to try to excuse their behaviour doesn't mean it's accurate. It's like claiming North Korea is democratic because they call themselves the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or that white supremacists are superior because that's what they call themselves. This dishonesty in how Antifa is represented in the media has to stop.
No, you're exactly right. Just because they're good at branding doesn't mean they should get kudos for that, right? These people are not anti-fascist. Anti-American, they're anti-free speech, they're anti-dialogue, they're anti-debate, they're anti-everything that folks like Charlie Kirk stood for. This was an individual who didn't care about, conservative supremacy on college campuses. He cared about actual equality of ideas between the exchange of them. And they didn't believe that that was enough. And so they took his life because of it. And so, President Trump is exactly right. AG Pambani is exactly right to go after these people to ensure they do not have the ability to commit the acts of violence that they have a long track record of doing right here in America. And again, we should encourage that. We should continue to protect that, because these people, they hate this country. And if they had their way, there would be no other half of this nation with the ability to say that they love their God, they love their country, and they love the idea of a nuclear family. They would absolutely eliminate every right to say those things.
Oh, yeah, we've seen that. We've seen that all too well in recent years. CJ, I want to play you a clip of you with Charlie on a university campus. This is special.
Being hunted?
Let me tell. Okay, y'all can laugh, but until you have walked as a black person on this campus, y'all truly don't understand.
CJ, come here, really quick. I have a question. Come here. Go right there. Right there. So CJ, just really quick. You're a black person. Are you hunted at the university?
You know, I don't feel hunted at this university, but I guess the difference between me and some people here is that I don't choose to be a victim, Charlie, which I think is the biggest problem we have here today are people who wake up every single day looking for a reason to be oppressed.
Tell me about that, CJ, and tell me about what Charlie was like as a man, as a friend.
You know, Rita, that clip actually makes me a little bit emotional because, when I was just 12 years old, he was one of the first people to reach out to me in the national conservative movement. I was a young kid who made a viral YouTube video, and he DM'd me on Twitter and said, "Hey, CJ, loved your work, love your content. If I can ever be helpful to you, let me know how." And as someone who grew up in a Democrat household with parents who weren't the fondest of my political beliefs, to have someone that validated the mission that I was on meant a great deal to me. And at that moment, the University of Alabama, which I'm actually here now on campus at Alabama because I came back to host a memorial rally for Charlie. It's a full circle moment. This is an individual who stood for the ideas of free speech, who stood for the ideas of loving your God, loving your country, all things that make America America. And he went in the belly of the beast every single day, knowing the risk that came with that. But he did it because he believed that America was a country where, and it's a huge legacy to live up to. But I know that he would want us to carry on the torch. He would want us to continue to fight the good fight. And that is what honestly reassures me. I know that he's in a better place and that he's looking down upon this nation, upon this world. We see vigils and rallies all across the world of people remembering his name. And I know that he's smiling ear to ear and saying, not only is his legacy alive, but it's alive and well. And God bless him for it.
And his legacy is going to be, I think, stronger than anyone can fathom. That there are 54,000 new applications for Turning Point chapters since Charlie's assassination, CJ. There are only around 2,000 chapters in place currently. I say only, that's plenty. But tell me about the reaction from young people. We've seen the ugliness, we've talked about that, the celebrations, but there are also plenty of young people who have had their eyes opened by this entire week.
Hey, you're exactly right. And I'll talk about it on a micro scale. Again, I just wrapped up an event here at the University of Alabama here in the States. And I was talking to the Turning Point USA president, and they said that their group chat for their chapter went from 200 people to 1,000 people in the aftermath of the terrible assassination of Charlie. And I think that the deal, if Charlie always said that if he were to be remembered for anything, it would be for the courage of his faith. And for him to lead a revival like this, to lead people to go to church, to read their Bible, and to join an organization like Turning Point USA, he would have felt as if his mission had been accomplished. And so, I report to him, looking up above, that his mission has indeed been accomplished. And the work that is, lies ahead is just beginning. And we're going to do everything that we can to glorify his name and to make sure his legacy is not just what he left it as, but is bigger than he ever could have imagined.
You're so right there. And part of his legacy was the way that people have remembered him. They haven't remembered him by rioting or by engaging in acts of violence, but by having vigils, by having group prayer, and by paying a tribute to his memory. And it's all been very peaceful. CJ, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rita.